Reynoldstown, it began just after the Civil War. Formerly enslaved people moved to that area seeking work, seeking freedom, and it was established in 1870. And this neighborhood quickly became this tight-knit African-American community.
It's got kind of a couple little fun names that have been given to a couple different sections and pockets. You know, at some points been called Tin Cup Alley. It just kind of had this blue-collar lifestyle to it.
Welcome back to ATL, All Things Local, the podcast where we dive deep into Atlanta neighborhoods, history, and culture. I'm Jeff Goddard. Today we're exploring one of Atlanta's most storied and evolving neighborhoods, Reynoldstown. It's got Civil War roots, the BeltLine literally runs through it, and it has layers of culture, creativity, community, a lot worth uncovering, and a lot of people already have uncovered Reynoldstown. It's really a bustling part of our city. What do you have to say about Reynoldstown, Adam?
Well, Reynoldstown is where I used to live. I lived off Manigault Street for quite some time. And
don't you work out there even today?
I spend a lot of time in Reynoldstown. I do. I go to Terminus Strength and Conditioning. It's right off of Memorial. We'll talk a lot about the developments off of Memorial, but it's one of the older buildings, or at least it's a cinder block building, so it's not a brand new construction there. But it's a really good sense of community there within that gym, and we spend a lot of time walking over to Con Leche or, doing things. You'll see us running around. If you see a bunch of really buff people running around the streets of Reynoldstown,
that's not you.
No, I'm with the buff people, but I it's all of us at the gym. So.
But what's interesting is you live in Medlock Park, and that's probably 20 minutes without traffic. Are there a lot of people that will drive that far in town to a gym?
Well, so it is a community, and I have made a ton of friends there. And so, yes, are there other gyms that are closer to me? Yes, there are. But at the same time, I go there for the people, the community, and
it's like moving to a different neighborhood, going to the same church kind of thing.
Yeah, but I also moved from Ponce Highland to Medlock Park. So at the time, I was
super close.
Yeah. So, yes, BeltLine neighborhood. We talk a lot about the BeltLine on our show.
It's kind of hard not to.
Yeah, it is kind of hard not to. But I'll say, if you have ever seen those murals that run along the BeltLine.
Wiley Street?
Down Wiley Street, yes.
I think it has a name.
The murals?
Forward Warrior or something?
Yes, I think that's maybe the collective that puts it on or something like that.
And they're so good.
They are. A lot of them are very famous artists that paint them. Or local Atlanta artists who, some of my clients have even painted some of that stuff. Yes, so that BeltLine runs directly straight down Reynoldstown, down Wiley, and then it cuts up Flat Shoals right there at Breaker, and crosses directly through the neighborhood all the way until it spits you out onto Memorial.
Right by Muchacho.
Right by Muchacho, one of our favorite stops, and we'll talk about, that Muchacho in a bit, along with it shoots you over to Madison Yards and Glenwood Park and down Bell Kennedy. So it's quickly kind of become a centralized, very walkable, maybe the most walkable Southeast neighborhood.
Yeah, we had a nice time just shooting B-roll over there, strolling through the neighborhood. Really, really, really nice place.
Yeah. And so, to its west, you've got Cabbagetown, right? Those two neighborhoods, a lot of people, they kind of intertwine. If you're new to the city, you might not.
Yeah, I'm sure there is a definitive defining line, but it's in practice hard to identify.
Right. They do kind of bleed into one another, but, through history, they have been divided, and we'll talk about that as well. But also you've got the Holtzclaw Yards, or the
Holtzclaw Yard.
Holtzclaw Yards, right, being another divider, which is still an active, train to
freight depot.
Freight line to load up 18-wheelers and send them away from what the train has brought in. That's very much about what Atlanta is. And then the other side of that would be Memorial and Glenwood Park and I-20. So you're kind of right in the heart of everything. And then Moreland being the other side, Edgewood is the other neighborhood that would connect to that. You've got Grant Park.
Reynoldstown, Cabbagetown are kind of the epitome of neighborhoods that have been impacted by transportation in the history of our city.
Yeah.
From the beginning.
Yeah.
Because the railroads were a very key defining part of that neighborhood. With or without Holtzclaw Yard, the railroad was there.
Right.
And then just a quarter mile south, you had one of the biggest interstate freeways in the country. So yeah, transportation changes for Reynoldstown and Cabbagetown throughout the, streetcars, everything, they have been impacted by the transportation in a way that many neighborhoods haven't.
That's right.
I guess we can dig into the history a little bit. Reynoldstown, it began just after the Civil War. Formerly enslaved people moved to that area seeking work, seeking freedom, and it was established in 1870. And something that I didn't know is named after Madison Reynolds. And Madison Reynolds was a successful Black landowner, shopkeeper, and this neighborhood quickly became this tight-knit African-American community. And Madison's son, Isaiah Reynolds, continued this work, the family legacy, as a real estate developer, and was really involved in civics in the city as well.
Yeah, and I think what you touched on, the Georgia Railroad runs directly through it. Holtzclaw Yards is where it is today. It's still active. But back then, even when I lived there was Stein Steel. The namesake for Stein Steel has now turned into townhomes and condos that are being built by Empire. But at the same point, it has always been to manufacture there or to transport goods, and so it's got kind of a couple little fun names that have been given to a couple different sections and pockets. At some points been called Tin Cup Alley, the Slide, even for like locations that would be
these things people still say today. Or
no, you would never say, yeah, but more. It just kind of had this blue collar lifestyle to it, and it was for working, African American community to be able to be homeowners, to be able to start these roots and have something for themselves and still be close proximity to these areas that were quickly there for work, right? And so, Wiley is kind of that main thoroughfare, and it features some of the oldest homes that are still sitting there in Reynoldstown today. Kind of some of the earlier sections of that, are pre-1920 even, and we oftentimes think 1920 is here in Atlanta when all of the homes were built because of, the Great Fire of 1917, and we talked about
that. I guess
that.
It took 3 years to get materials, and then they built them all in 1920.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe, yeah, exactly. Well, I think it's more so the records got burned up, but but anyway, by the early 20th century, we've got trolley lines and subdivisions happening and shaping along flat shoals, and that's really the ultimate main reason this neighborhood was developed or when it was developed.
And Reynoldstown, and this is something I didn't really realize until we started doing this episode, Reynoldstown, like we said, it blends right into Cabbagetown. I mean, they are two distinctly separate neighborhoods, but historically, Reynoldstown was this tight-knit African-American community. And what I had seen with my own eyes, even in the 70s and 80s, was just how interestingly Appalachian and white the residents of Cabbagetown were.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though there may not have been like a wall between them, they were distinctly different racial neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And that was something that was new information to me.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize that about Reynoldstown. But interesting that, segregation, intentional or not, just kind of developed that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of that too is, Reynoldstown was predominantly African-American working class. Cabbagetown was home to white mill workers that worked at the Fulton Bag and Cotton Mill. The CSX tracks, that was the physical boundary between the two neighborhoods, right? And
so that's the diagonal road?
Yeah. So you remember us walking down the BeltLine,
mm-hmm.
right? So I said, "Hey, Jeff, take a picture of that."
Oh, right. Yeah.
I believe that's the dividing line.
That would make total sense
in my head, but but nowadays, technically, it's not because Reynoldstown is on the opposite side of that train, right? So I used to have a friend who lived off of what is that, Selman Street or something like that. I forget the name of the street, but it was one street over. And he would say, I live in Reynoldstown. And, again, maybe it's me being naive about what the dividing line is, but maybe it is flat shoals. I'm sure somebody out here will tell us and they'll be happy, prove us right.
Those tracks weren't just a physical boundary. They were symbolic of economic and social racial segregation, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that it's important to know that those divisions faded with time, redevelopment. When that train line got discontinued, that's when it really started the line started to blur.
And that's an interesting point. When that train line was discontinued, for as long as I can remember, those were abandoned train lines. And everybody talks about the BeltLine utilizing these abandoned train lines. But do you have any idea when those were abandoned?
We probably should find that out. And maybe the BeltLine series that we do will uncover that fact. So, we talk about the bungalows there. You're pretty much craftsmen's, all of those eras. You're going to see a lot of those homes. The home I lived in, a lot of people might call a shotgun style house. 4-room, bungalows, 4-room craftsmen's, those sort of things. There is a lot of that. As far as attached homes go, you'll find some conversions, A&P lofts, right? That's a conversion. I think that was like a tea company, Georgia.
And then there was the what was it? The Triumph motorcycle loft. It wasn't called that.
South Park lofts?
I'm not sure what it's called, but it used to be Triumph Motorcycles.
I think that might be South Park lofts because that feels like a conversion.
Because it's right, if you're facing Muchacho, it's to the left.
Oh, no. That is, that's Reynoldstown Crossing. That's, and that was originally a Invest Atlanta partnership to where they gave teachers and
other city workers,
yeah, like an investment
incentive to move there. I guess
that's right. That's right. Yep, that's it. That was interesting. Nowadays, though, you can find all assortments of types of townhomes and condos there as well. Moda is a really good buy, I think.
Now, Moda is kind of on the northeast part of Reynoldstown. Is that right? Kind of closer to the tracks, I think.
It is. Yep.
And it's kind of just east of the east side of Holtzclaw Yard, I think.
Yeah. So, and that's, I think, why it's kind of stayed lower in value is because Holtzclaw Yard is still active. And as someone who lived, 3 blocks off of Wiley Street, which is right there on the sound barrier line, it's loud. I could hear it in the middle of the night. You hear these forklifts picking up these,
not just train loud, but like moving the cargo.
That's what it's
loud.
like. This goosh, type of sound. Maybe we should put a sound effect over that. I don't know how goosh would end up sounding, but we will learn. I say to say there's a lot of different stuff out there. Empire Stein Steel, that is, like I said, where the steel company was. And I miss that steel company being there. I miss, those workers would come from Stein Steel. They would hang out on the porch, drink their beer after work, and they were always fun to kind of, because they lived directly across the street from me. But Reynoldstown's one of those neighborhoods, and that it's like you could see every single different type of home in a row of 5 homes.
Yeah. Like contemporary modern construction right next to an unrenovated 1,000-foot bungalow.
Yeah, and then next to a mid-century modern rebuild sort of thing, and then
next to a huge house that got turned into a quadruplex.
Yeah. Or like there's a ton of side-by homes there, right? Those kind of like R5 lots or duplex style homes. You see a lot of those in Reynoldstown.
Do you mean the newer construction ones?
Yeah.
Where it's kind of front and back.
Yep. Yeah. Front and back or side to side, depending
connected
on which
with
street.
Like a garage or something.
Yep. Exactly. But you'll see like all 5 of those right next to one another, and that's kind of the odd thing about Reynoldstown. But because it was a neighborhood that was built for blue collar workers, it's tight, right? So you're not going to have a half-acre lot. You're going to have pretty much a small little yard if you're lucky.
Yeah, you're going to have to really work to get any extra space.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just go back to Moda real quick. Opportunity for what would be considered part of Reynoldstown.
Mm-hmm.
If that gets developed, which
In Cabbagetown too, I guess, right?
yeah, because it extends all the way across. I guess the bigger base area in terms of acreage is just north of Reynoldstown, south of the tracks. But Moda is a very self-contained little neighborhood. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of what the community involvement and proposal has been for Holtzclaw Yard is specifically not to do what Moda did.
Right.
And to make sure that any new developments kind of feel like the openness of the existing kind of other parts of Reynoldstown, where you can see 8 different types of homes across eight different lots.
Yeah.
And I think more importantly, I think if I'm reading what the neighborhood wants, it doesn't want any type of segregation, racial or otherwise. They want it to be open, accessible, not closed down. So if you want to buy in Moda, maybe that's something to consider, because some people do want to have a little bit more privacy or not having people move through there. So there are some interesting opportunities to own properties in areas that might kind of go against what the vision for the future of the neighborhood is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to say that, what Holtzclaw Yards ultimately ends up becoming is really unknown. I mean, they've put it up for sale like 2 or 3 times now, it feels like. And
I didn't realize it was ever officially up for sale.
I think they put it up for sale. They looked at bids, didn't accept anything, and then went back. They had emptied it at one point, and then then it kind
of started again.
It's not full. I mean, when I lived there, it was
full.
It was full.
Yeah.
I mean, it was rows and rows of shipping containers. But that might just be because.
But if you've ever driven from, say, the tracks south on Boulevard to I-20 and felt how bumpy that part of Boulevard is, it's all because of those trucks.
Yeah.
Because there's, that is
a lot of weight going
up.
a
lot of weight.
Yeah, that's very true. But, if you're living in Reynoldstown, you wouldn't be affected by that. I will say mainly because the streets are really small. You can't park on both sides of the street. I mean, you block everything. You can hardly drive. Unless you're a true Atlanta driver, you can fit 2 cars down, opposite ways, going opposite ways down Wiley Street.
Yeah, Wiley is a tough street to navigate.
But if you're not an Atlanta driver, you're pulling off to the side real quick. And you can always tell who is an Atlanta driver and who isn't.
They need to train the Waymo cars on Wiley.
Yeah,
exclusively.
That would be great. Yeah. Or just keep a rolling count of how many rearview mirrors have been broken off. So let's talk about homes real quick. So newer construction homes, a nicely remodeled home. That's typically going to fetch anywhere from $850,000 to $1.5 million range. You're going to have larger.
So that would be maybe built in the last 20 years kind of thing?
Yeah, when I say newer, 20 years, but not necessarily 20.
Because we had that big boom of building around 2005, which would kind of put us about that 20-year mark. Was there a lot of the housing boom in the early 21st century that you see in Reynoldstown, or is it kind of a subsequent boom?
There is. But those homes don't fetch that amount. Those homes are actually on the cheaper end because what they built were those Charleston-style double porch, pretty small kitchen in the back corner living room when you walk in, and then a small dining room. But
so maybe the layout doesn't appeal.
And they're
to
mostly
the contemporary
3
buyer.
2.5s. Yeah, they feel cheap. They feel like just these basic builds.
I mean, it was almost a pandemic kind of feeling at that point in the market because there was so much happening. You kind of had to work with what you had.
Yeah.
Because the boom was just going. So, and then newer ones, say since then, maybe 10 years older. Or newer.
Anything like that. 2000, call it 16, 17 is probably when the market really started to pick up in Reynoldstown, I would say. And a lot of it had to do with the BeltLine, and then prices escalated quickly after the BeltLine got paved through there as well. if you are looking for one of the traditional bungalows, you can still find those relatively affordable for an Intown market, 600 to, depending on finishes. You could probably go up to $1 million with some of them, but they would have to be really nicely done, and they would have to have the square footage, which would, for a Reynoldstown, probably require an addition to be put on the house. And then condos, like we mentioned, Stein Steel, A&P Lofts is a little bit more expensive. Reynoldstown Crossing, those are a little bit bigger, but you can find stuff in the mid 300s and up range from there. And then townhouses, just depends on how big and who built it and when it was built and all of that stuff.
So basically, Reynoldstown, small lots, walkability, proximity to a lot of things, low maintenance yards. You're not going to be hopping on a riding lawnmower there unless you want to drive it down the street. That might be an easier way to get through these narrow streets. A lot of rooftop patios, urban type living at its best is a great way to describe Reynoldstown.
Yeah.
But the BeltLine running right through it, really takes that to the next level. You could get from the studio where we are recording right now on a bike very easily without ever getting on an actual city street.
Yeah. And that's why I think at the beginning of the show, I said Reynoldstown might be the most walkable in-town neighborhood, because you look at neighborhoods like Grant Park. Cabbagetown technically isn't part of the BeltLine. I mean, I guess it is. Astoria, it touches it. But then it shoots directly towards Reynoldstown, And then if you're in Grant Park, you're got to cross through Reynoldstown to get there. So you really are closer to this central hub of being right there at MM Park. Right there, you take the BeltLine, you go through Krog Tunnel, and then you're at Krog Street Market, and
Krog Tunnel is an event in and of itself. Going through there. What a fun place.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like you said too, I think it's important to note that Reynoldstown also has a MARTA stop that on the flip side is Inman Park.
Inman Park, Reynoldstown.
Yeah. And back when I lived in Reynoldstown, I would walk there. I'd walk across the bridge to get to Inman Park Fest or anything like that. But it's really nice to be able to, because it's connected to the neighborhood. You could go almost anywhere from Reynoldstown and not need a car.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Having that MARTA stop is key.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to pop over to Decatur and do what I need to at the courthouse or whatever.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you mentioned Krog Tunnel. If you've ever been on Instagram or you've ever watched a hip hop video, you have likely seen Krog Tunnel at one time or another, if you didn't realize it. But every time you walk down Krog Tunnel, it seems like somebody's either graffitiing over somebody else's graffiti or someone's filming a hip hop video.
Yeah, and I never know what the etiquette is for that.
Yeah, I just wave.
I mean, for putting graffiti on top of existing graffiti.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know that either. I'm like filming a hip hop video. I was like, I just wave at him. I don't know. I mean, it's now turned into part of the BeltLine, so it's really active. I would say back in the day, there was much more graffiti that kind of happened. Nowadays, it's almost like an inconvenience because you're biking or running.
Yeah, there's a lot more traffic through there. Yeah. Where do you eat, drink, shop? Where do you do the normal stuff around Reynoldstown?
I mean, Reynoldstown, there is no shortage.
There are lots of coffee spots.
There's a lot of coffee spots.
And not just in the morning. I mean, in all day, those places seem packed.
Yeah. Well, Muchacho especially, because they've got food. I think they might do some level of drink service. I don't know.
And there was that one place we passed that had a monthly membership.
Con Leche. Yeah. They have a monthly membership. That's so cool. You can just always go over there and just put it on my tab. But it's not on a tab. You get free coffee, I think.
Free if you pay.
Well, I guess it's not free, right? Yeah. There's Daily Dose. That's over in Madison Yards. And then you also have Park Grounds, which is the one that's been there forever.
Tell us about this biscuit that you like at Homegrown.
Oh, the Comfy Chicken Biscuit. Yeah, I mean, it's so popular. If you want a Southern breakfast, Homegrown is the place to go. It feels like an old diner. It's pretty popular. I would say most people have been there. And then as far as dining out goes, we talked about Muchacho. They do serve food. They've got a great patio. It's right on the BeltLine. Breaker, we were able to stop in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's got a really fun people watching patio. Again, looks directly over the BeltLine.
It's just so cool architecturally too.
Yeah, it is.
It plays up to a lot of the Atlanta themes, the railroad and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they'd kind of kept the top of what was Stein steel, where they like housed the steel, and so it's got a really cool roof. Behind Muchacho, there is a place, Tiger and Sun. That's like an Asian fusion cocktail-driven bus.
Oh, that's the one that's super hard to get into.
Yeah, it's a relatively new thing, but you have to get reservations like probably, I don't know, like 2 months in. Well, no, they release them every 2 weeks, and they sell out immediately. And then, at Southern Dairies, you've got, or not Southern Dairies, excuse me, at the Dairies, Atlanta Dairies, you have El Malo, which is kind of a Latin-themed cocktail tapas place. But that place at night turns into like a really fun bar. It's easy to spend $300 in there. It goes fast.
Yeah.
But they've got clarified pina coladas that are you could just slam them back.
What does that mean?
A clarified pina colada means it's a pina colada that looks like water.
What?
Everything's clarified, so it's completely clear.
But it tastes like a pina colada.
It tastes, yeah.
Huh.
It looks like you're drinking water. It tastes like a pina colada. But
is it lower calorie? I thought that was a big thing with pina coladas. Is they're like 1,000 calories a cup or something?
I don't think so. It's just
probably no free lunch.
Gastronomy or something that somebody figured out how to clarify everything in it. But it turns into a dance club at night, and it's a Latin dance club, so it's really fun if you're looking to get out. If you are looking for probably the best culinary experience, Whoopsies is where I would go.
Really?
Yep. It's right on the...
I'm so behind on restaurants. I got a lot of things to check out.
Well, luckily I'm here, and I've dined at these places, so... But Whoopsies is kind of a retro space. They've got good cocktails. They've got really good... kind of unique foods that you wouldn't find in Reynoldstown otherwise. Like if you're looking for pate or you're looking for any of those kind of like...
Does anybody look for pate?
I love pate.
I do too, but I haven't heard anybody say, let's go out for pate.
Or like tartare, like if you want like bone marrow, those sort of like dishes that would be a little bit more, geared towards the fine dining side. That's what
not your typical burger. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, the dairies, we talked about that. They also have 3 taverns.
And what is Breaker really known for? I just thought of it as a place to drink.
Yeah, they've got kind of like a seafood sort of thing. Hush puppies, that sort of vibe. And then they have Florida Man, which is up top, and that's technically a different restaurant. They've got some fun things where it's like no dogs, no shoes, no shirt. Sort of like signs that you're like, oh, well, no dogs makes sense, but the others don't. But yeah, there is no shortage. So, but one thing to think about too is shopping. So tell us a little bit about kind of shopping around there.
Well, the Memorial Drive overhaul, if you want to call it that, which I think really kind of started with Glenwood Park just across the freeway. That was a pretty major development right there on Bill Kennedy. And then there's, now you've got AMC theaters, real grocery stores, lots of density in terms of people. So something like a coffee shop can open and stay in business. And just, you're not far from, say, the Edgewood Retail District. Like that's where you would go to your closest Lowe's.
That's where I went when I lived there.
But you're also right on I-20. So you could get a lot of places quick if you wanted to get, to a different part of town to maybe go pick up something that they don't have there. But really that whole Memorial Corridor right there, that's when people talk about Memorial Drive changing, that's definitely the epicenter of that change. But shopping is, if you used to live in Reynoldstown or Cabbagetown, you really had to kind of work to find your closest grocery store, for example. And now it's all right there.
Yeah. I think about, you've got Edgewood Shopping Center on one side of the neighborhood, and that's a Fuqua development. And then Fuqua built Madison Yards, which has, it's like Kroger on one side, and then Madison Yards has a Publix. And then you go down Bill Kennedy, and you've got another Kroger.
The big one.
The big one that you can
see from the freeway.
Yeah. And then it's got Chick-fil-A, and then it's got other big box stores. Like you mentioned the AMC Theater, and then Edgewood Shopping Center. There's a Target there. There's Lowe's, like you said. There's no shortage of big box around there. So, but the good thing about Reynoldstown too is it does have the small stuff that's more, local small businesses. So it kind of feels like you could really get everything all in one.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's talk about schools.
Yeah, because there's a school right across from that mega Kroger, I should say. What school is that?
John Faith. The John Faith,
because it was recently renovated or built,
learning
or
school or something like that. Yeah. Oh wait, which school are you talking about?
Across from the big Kroger, like if you go across Bill Kennedy.
Oh, Maynard Jackson.
Oh, is that Jackson?
Yeah. Yeah, that's Maynard Jackson High School. So yes, Reynoldstown is in the Jackson cluster. They actually go to Burgess Peterson. A lot of people call that BPA. Burgess Peterson Academy. It is in East Atlanta Village. And then they would go to King Middle, and then they would go to Maynard Jackson High.
And getting somewhere like Burgess Peterson, again, is like having I-20 right there. It's really easy to get to someplace like Burgess Peterson. Maybe on surface streets, that would take a while.
Yeah.
But from Reynoldstown, you just hop on the highway and go.
Well, for Burgess Peterson, I would go down Bill Kennedy and hang a left on the Glenwood and
just go down Glenwood.
Yeah, I'd go Glenwood the whole way. But if you're talking about how schools rank, I know Atlanta's probably not the most favorable school system. Like most people would shop Alpharetta if they were looking for just schools
in the area.
Yeah, but if you're looking for a home in an Intown area, the Maynard Jackson cluster is actually a really good school system. Reynoldstown also has a lot of parks. One that I used to live pretty much on when I lived on Manigault, Lane Carson Park. Jeffy, tell us a little bit about it.
Well, Lane Carson Park is kind of the community hub. So much happens there. I mean, it seems like it was a big part of your life when you lived there. Thanks to Friends of Lane Carson Park and the Reynoldstown Civic Improvement League and groups like that. There are new play areas and structures and just generally a great place for the community.
Yeah, it's really cool too how the community has just kind of taken it and made it what it wants to be. Back when I was there, it was a covered basketball court and one tennis court and then kind of a field, and there was a playground, but it didn't get used a lot. So it's cool to kind of see now they've got like a little mini skate park that you can go skateboard in and things like that. There's also the annual Wheelbarrow Festival, and you're from the South, you say wheelbarrow.
Wheelbarrow.
But with the Wheelbarrow Festival. And that's a local favorite. It's got music, food, a lot of local native artists. And
But why? Why is it called the Wheelbarrow Festival?
That is a really good question. I should know that, but I don't. But I'm sure somebody does know that. And even as someone who lived there.
Well, I mean, everybody needs a wheelbarrow.
Everybody needs a wheelbarrow. Maybe they bring their wheelbarrows.
You'd think it would be something historic.
You do. Yeah. But regardless, it's a great festival. It's their neighborhood festival. And, it's at Lane Carson Park. But yeah, Reynoldstown overall, I really enjoyed living there when I lived there. I would totally move back there today. I work out there. I spend a lot of time there. I drink a lot of coffee there. And there is a ton of stuff to do. And I really do think it is like the Intown's most walkable, connected neighborhood right now as far as where the BeltLine is.
Yeah, I agree. Rich history, urban convenience, tight-knit community. You could do a lot worse.
Yeah.
Than finding a place in Reynoldstown.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. And next week we'll cover another episode. And if you have any thoughts, stories, or anything on Reynoldstown, please make sure to share, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.